Okay, namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start our Prashnopanishad class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto ma satgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityor ma amritam gamya. Om sehna bhavatu, sehno bhunaktu, saviryam karvavahi, tejasvinavadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahi. Om shanti 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 om. So sixth chapter we're going to start today. In the first 5 chapters, each chapter was devoted to each question. So the first chapter was about where are the creatures born? The whole creation, where did it come from? Then the second question was how many devatas support the living beings and who is the greatest? Third question was about the pran shakti. The fourth question was about sleep and dream. And the fifth question in the 5th chapter was about Om. Om. Cream of this Upanishad is in this last question. We'll see a very famous discussion on the Purusha with his 16 kalas. 16 kala. Sola kala, as they said. The 16 kalas are the expressions of life, which we are all very well know. Sola kala. And this Rishi Piplad, he is using a very beautiful method to explain the Purusha, the Atma, by bringing out the entire attention towards the symbols of life. And then he is indicating at the core of it all as a substratum of the entire life, as the very cause of it, which is the vitality, dynamic center, which is called Purusha or the Atma. So this last chapter is about the Atma, which most of us don't even think about it. This is the substratum, but we don't pay attention to the substratum. The Atma, being the subtlest of the subtle, is not available for the gross instruments of observation. And what are the instruments of our observation? Our senses, our mind, our intellect. They're all gross, no matter how subtle we make them. And Atma is the subtler than the subtlest. It's not even available to the feelings or comprehension, but it is available only for the intuitive understanding. Intuitive. So naturally, the teachers of the Upanishads had to adopt this method of first making us understand the various facets. That's why in all the chapters, he gave us some upasanas, so that our mind becomes very subtle. So we could, through our intuition, understand this total truth, which is the very basis on which all these different facets, kalas, exist. Through the kalas, this divinity shines. So because the comprehension of the reality is possible only through intuitive experiencing, it is the responsibility of the teacher to make the student evolve through the upasanas. So that's why if we don't meditate every day, if we don't sit down, even reflect upon what we study, if we don't do our homework, any of this is just a theoretical learning, not experiential. Ultimately, this section is addressed to those who have understood the earlier 5 chapters and have practiced also intelligently the methods of meditation which have been prescribed so far. Only then will be able to start to understand this subject, the subject of the Atma. Sure, we have a quest to know, but we got to prepare ourselves also for it. If we are hungry to eat, we better manage to have some food also. So that's why all these first 5 chapters are so important. Remember that. Go back. Upanishads are supposed to be studied again and again and again. Bhagavad Gita is Upanishad too. That's why we study Bhagavad Gita again and again and again. So these Upanishads also. So let's start this chapter number 6, the last chapter. अथ हैनम सुकेशः भारद्वाजापप्रच्छ भगवान हिरण्यनाभा कौशल्यो राजपुत्रो माम उपेत्यतम प्रश्नं पृच्छत शोठशकलां भरद्वाज पुरुषं वेतथ तम अहम कुमारम अब्रुवम न अहम इमं वेद यदि अहम इमं वेदीषु कथं ते न अवक्ष्यमिति समूलो व एषं परिशुष्यति यो अनृतम अभिवदति तस्मात् आरायम अनृतम वक्तुम स तूष्णीम रथम आरूह्यम प्रव्रजम तम त्वा पृच्छामि क्व असौ पुरुष इति. Pretty long verse. At means next or now. He means indeed, Enam means him. Him means the Rishi Piplad. Enam. Bharadwajaha Sukesha. So Sukesha is the name of that young disciple. Sukesha of the Bharadwaj Gotra. Prach asked Bhagwan, O Lord, O Holy Master, Bhagwan, Hiranyamanabha, that's a Hiranyanabha, Kosalyaha of Kosal, Kosal Desha, Rajputraha, the prince, Rajputra. So Bhagwan Hiranyabha Koslyo Rajputraha Mam. Mam means me. Upetye, having approached. Upetye. Prashnam, question. Prapachat, asked. Shotashkala, the 16 parts. Bhardwaj, oh, so he is calling him Bhardwaj, even though that's a Gotra, but sometimes we are addressed as our last names also. Okay, so Bhardwaj, Purusham, Purusha, the soul. Vetat, do you know? Tam means that, Aham means I, Kumaram, prince, Ab Bruvam said, Na means, see, Na Aham Imam Ved. Aham is I, Imam means this, Na Ved, do not know. Yadi, if, again, Aham means Aham and Imam. Imam means this, Aham means I. A Vedisham had known. Katham, why? Te means to you. Na is not avakshyam, have told. Iti means thus. Tasmat, therefore, Vaktum. Vaktum means to say. Vaktum. Sa tushnim. Sa means he, tushnim means silently. Ratham, the chariot. Aruhi, ascended. Pravraj. That means went away. Tam means that. Tva means to you. Prichami, I ask. Asau, this. Ka means where. Ka, asau. Where this. Purush is the soul. Iti means thus. I hope I have covered everything. I think there's one word over there. Tasmat aharame. That means cannot tell. Anritam. Anritam is falsehood. Okay. Anritam. See, ritam is the truth. Anrit is false. Okay. So then Sukesha. That's the name of that young boy, Sukesha, who belonged to the Bhardwaj Gotra or son of Bhardwaj. Questioned him. Questioned him who? Rishi Piplad. Oh Bhagwan, the prince of Koshal, Hiranyanab. So prince of Koshal's name is Hiranyanab. Once came to me and questioned, Oh Bhardwaj, do you know the Purusha of 16 parts? 16 kalas? I said to the youth, so Sukesha is saying to Piplad that this prince came to me, he asked me this question. And he said, I said to the youth, I do not know him. That means I do not know the Atma. If I knew him, why should I not tell you? He who tells that which is not true is dried up verily. Root, stem, and branch, samoola. Therefore, I dare not utter falsehood. Having ascended his chariot, he went away in silence. Tushneem, that I ask you, where is that Purush located? Okay. There's a lot embedded in this question. Sure, he's asking a question, where is this Purush? Or what is this Purush? With the 16 kalas. But at the same time, there's a deeper implication of this question. First of all, this sixth disciple was sitting very silently all this time, listening to those previous five questions also, and to the answers also. Now he has come forward to clear his doubt. So his question looks very simple. Where is this Purush with the 16 parts located? He's asking that. But he's giving a little background. So he says, this Rajkumar came for satsang, visited the ashram, and he asked this question. And he said, I did not know. So this is the first thing we understand. A true seeker of knowledge must be ready to own his ignorance. That I do not know. It takes courage. Especially it takes courage when somebody else is asking us. I do not know. He said, that's what I said. Without hesitation, Sukesha owned up his ignorance. He did not cover it up. He did not give the vague answer. He said, I do not know. So this is like a very dramatic beauty of the Upanishadic literature. Often we see that. Because we know that physical uncleanliness, mental confusion, intellectual ignorance, or even the meanness in the behavior, or even a grossness in our thoughts or ideas, they cannot come in a personality who is trying to evolve. That's why all these conditions, all these disciplines are insisted upon us. Shauch, ahimsa, santosh, non-stealing, all of those qualities. So over here we find even the casual thoughts of a perfected master have a scriptural style of their own thoughts. Even though he's unconscious of it, but this has become his personality. When our mind is divinely composed and connected with God, only then there's a clarity. There's a clear ring of sincerity. So when the Rajkumar hears Sukesha confessing his ignorance of the Purusha, he did ask again actually, because he wanted to know the clarity. That's why he came over there. And that's why it's added over here in this question. So this Sukesha is telling Rishi Piplad, if I knew, if I had the answer to his question, why should I not tell him? Because when we know something, it's our duty to pass it on to the next generation. That is another element of this Vedic philosophy. Vedic seers, they constantly, they say, you have learned it, now spread it. Because if we hoard anything, what happens? It becomes muddy. Even in the physical things we see, if water is hoarded, there's no flow of the water, what happens? It becomes muddy. It becomes dirty. But flowing water is always clean. Hoarding of the wealth also, the same thing happens. And this knowledge is a wealth. So that's why he said, if I know him, why should I not tell you? I would have told him. He who tells that which is not true gets destroyed. How it gets destroyed? With your own burden. So knowledge becomes a burden. It creates arrogance. It creates a wall between us and the others. I know more than others. In the world of this finite, as well as in the realm of infinite. This is our Vedic philosophy. Truthfulness is helpful in the material world. We know that. We want to associate only with the people who are truthful. It has been discussed earlier. But if we are moving towards the perfection, highest, the truthfulness is considered by all schools of thinkers at the very top of their list of qualification. Truthfulness. So in the material world or in the sacred world, truthfulness. To be dishonest or untruthful is to bring into a large amount of disintegration in our personality. So there has to be a harmony. Harmony in our words, harmony in our thoughts, harmony in our actions. That's what Satya is. So he was convinced, and Prince looks like he believed it, and with a silence, he just climbed on his chariot and went away. He did not get his answer. So that's why in the last part of this question, this disciple Sukesha is asking the Guru that I ask you, where is that Purush? Here the word where means that how can we meditate on that Purusha? How can we find this Purusha? These kalas help us to meditate on the Purusha. So this is what he's saying. Okay, let me read the translation again, because it's a long verse. Sometimes all these names, if we are not clear about it, we get confused. Then Sukesha, son of Bhardwaj, questioned him. O Bhagwan, the prince of Koshal Hiranyanabh once came to me and questioned, O Bhardwaj, Do you know the Purusha of 16 parts? So that was a question of that prince. I said to the youth, I do not know him. So him is what? The soul. If I knew him, why should I not tell you? He who tells that which is not true is dried up verily with the roots. Therefore, I dare not utter falsehood. Okay. Having ascended his chariot, he went away in silence. That I ask you, where is that Purush located? Okay. Now let's look at verse number 2. Tasmai sahavacha इह एव अंतः शरीरे सौम्य स पुरुषो यस्मिन् एतः षोडशकला प्रभवन्ति इति तस्मै, to him. Sukesha, to him means Sukesha. Sa means he. He uvach, indeed, he means indeed. Uvach means said. Ih means here. Ev means indeed. Antaha sharire, within this body. Soumya. Soumya word has come again and again. Every time this guru is talking to these young kids, the disciples, he called them Soumya. My young friend, my beautiful friend, Soumya. Sa means he, Purusha, the Purush. Yasmin, in which? Etaha, here. Shotashkala, the 16 parts, Prabhavanti, arise. Iti means thus. He replied, O gentle youth, that Purush in whom these 16 kalas are born is right here within the body. Within the body. So this great Rishi Pipalad is replying to this very direct question and with a very direct answer also. Where is this Purush? Where is this divinity or the perfection is located? Is it housed somewhere else? In an unknown place? In the heaven somewhere? Out of the reach of ordinary people? But this Rishi is telling us very clearly that self or the God is the nearest entity. In us, which is forming the very core of our existence. It's right here. We cannot see it. That doesn't mean we cannot experience it. But eyes cannot see it. These physical eyes cannot even see their own. Can our eyes see our own eyes? They can never see the eyes. That is the limitation, incapability we have. We cannot see our own eyeballs or even eyelashes. Why? Because of the nearness. They are so close. Cannot even see it. So divinity is not realized or recognized because of its very nearness. It's closer than anything else. This is me. And we'll see that this will be explained in the rest of the chapter. But first we have to think about it ourselves. Purush, or the soul, is the central spark of the inner light. Right here, within this body, he says. But then we got to understand, he's not saying that the self is localized within the body. Because if it's localized within the body, then it will be conditioned. It will become finite. We know that it's pervading everywhere. So sometimes we think there's a contradiction. He says it's right here. So this teacher, the guru, is not discussing the definition of the infinite. He's not doing that. He's only declaring the method of realizing this truth. Because we need a central point. God is everywhere. We cannot focus on everywhere all the time. He says, focus right here. Choose this, then you will see that it's everywhere. It's not conditioned. It's all pervading. But first remember that this Purush is here within. And its absolute nature needs to be realized nowhere else within you, and yet everywhere. And again, remember, kalas are not the parts. Sometimes we translate as parts. Remember, kala is like a facet. See, just like a moon, when we talk about moon, moon has kalas. Moon is complete, but sometimes we see only part of moon, half of moon. Those are the kalas of moon, whatever we can see. Or look at the diamond. A beautiful diamond, many facets to it. They are not parts, they are only the facets. So remember that. So the kalas are to be understood as facets of a cut diamond or the phases of the moon. So even though we see the diversity, polarity, but it is not divided. That's how the God is not divided. So it's like all pervading, but we are only looking at one facet, not complete yet. So kalas have no separate existence of their own. Like a part of the moon cannot exist by itself because it's part of the whole moon. Or one side of the diamond cannot exist by itself because it's part of the whole. So the same way these kalas are just the facets. So why is he telling us that it's right here? Because in the beginning, this is how we can understand it. It's almost like if somebody, you are thirsty and you need water. You ask somebody to bring a water, how will they bring it? They need to use a vessel, a cup or a glass or a bottle. That doesn't mean that water element is conditioned or finite. So the same way he's just using this terminology over here so that we can understand it a little better. So technique this great Rishi is adopting just to explain the truth. So with the help of the objective world, he's trying to make us understand subjectively. Remember that. Now let's look at next verse, verse number 3. स इक्षाम चक्रे कस्मिन् अहम उत्क्रांतः उत्क्रांतो भविष्यामि कस्मिन् वः प्रतिष्ठते प्रतिष्ठितः अस्यम् इति. स means he, iksham chakre, thought, kasmin utkrante, who having gone out, aham means I, utkrantah, out, bhavishyami, shall become, kasmin va pratisthate, who being established. Pratishtha means establishment. Pratishthasyami, shall be established. Iti means thus. So shall be established mean in the body. So he, Purusha, the soul, reflected. Isham chakre, thought, reflected. What is it by whose departure I shall depart? And by whose stay I shall stay? So this great guru is trying this, bringing this very subtle idea into the mind of this young student. Even though mind thinks, but over here he is bringing this causation, because causation is the very stuff of the intellect, causation. This is the only method by which the intellect can understand and act. These young students, they want to use their intellect to understand even the Atma. So that's why these words are being used over here, iksham chakre. He's trying his best to make this young person comprehend the eternal reality, the Atma. Atma is unborn, ever pure, it's infinite, untouched by the finite. But he says that without the force of the desire, nothing works. So iksham chakra is a kind of a desire. So Atma thinks that if I come, how will I stay and how will I live? So he's trying to because he's trying to bring those sola kala, the 16 facets into the picture over here. So that's why he's putting this causation as the very basis of it. It's like it's guided by the force of desire. The desires, because we are here, there must be some desire. It's almost like every flower will not become a fruit. But every fruit was a flower. Right? Without flower, fruit cannot be. So presupposes at least a flower. So there must be some desires which are not strong enough, which did not come out as a thought, but there is a thought, it must have risen up from a desire behind it. So this is the very subtle element he is adding over here. So desire, what is a desire? Desire is the expression of a want felt in ourselves. And we want to fulfill that want. That want which was expressed as a desire. So before thought, there was a desire. And after thought, there's an action. So that's how it works. So in our real nature, we being the all full paripurna, we must have some ignorance, the avidya. The desires arise out of ignorance. Even though it's a Atma is a Shuddha Buddha Atma, but whenever there's some lacking in there, that is, we have moved away from paripurna, completeness. There's a certain desire. And this great Rishi, he analyzed the source of all our sorrows. He found that it was nothing but our ignorance about ourselves. And the same ignorance expressed through the intellect to desire. And then desire, first in the intellectual zone, then the thought, it expresses in the mental zone as a thought. And then the thought becomes solidified into action. So according to the actions, we gain the fruits in this world. And that's why this world, this lok which we are in, is called the field of experience. We come here to experience. If there was some lack, we want to experience something. So in this verse, this great Rishi is trying to explain the causation chain. Supreme divine desire. So desires could be different ways. There could be a tamasic desire, there could be a rajasic desire, there could be a sattvic desire. He's talking about the supreme divine desire. So the Lord of this body, which is the Atma, desired or reflected or thought or meditated, whichever way. See, the total mind is macrocosmic. And the little, our own lok is microcosmic. So whether it was a bigger world or a smaller world, there has to be certain desire to be fulfilled. That's why they say, Yatha Brahmande, Tatha Pinde. As in the macrocosm, so in the microcosm. See, just like the ocean desiring to express its own glory, what does it do? It just brings the waves. Sometimes the tsunamis also. So the Creator thought about how best he could express himself, how all this vitality can be expressed through this creation. Thoughts give us the concept of the mind. We all know that. Mind determines the shape of the world. Okay. The ego cannot be without these physical envelopments, whether you want to call it a matter envelopments or these finite envelopments. So for the ego to express, all this is needed. So what the Purush reflected upon was, with what vehicle shall I delude myself? It's like a deluding means forgetting about myself. What kind of a dress I can wear so that I can hide myself? This is what happened. So Purushi is here, but all these envelopments, upadhis, they are the dresses which we wear. And we'll see that in the following verse, there is a full description of these different dresses. These 16 colors are the dresses, different layers. And all of them constitute the matter. Through that matter, this Atma or the Purusha is playing this game, a temporary game, but playing this game as the mortal. See, playing the game of the mortal, even though it is immortal. See, Atma is immortal, but it needs all these layers to play the game. Sometimes we wear a garb of a saint, sometimes a sinner, sometimes a female, sometimes a male. Sometimes we want to help others, and other times we want to be helped by others. Even though we are the seer, but we forget. We become part of the scene. Atma is eternally pure, ever the infinite, has none of the limitations of the finite. Remember that. But it comes to believe the experiences of the finite shape. Just like a little child. In fact, it's encouraged these days. Let them play in their own imagined world. Sitting in the room, imagining. This is what we have done over here. This is all our imagination. We get engrossed into our duties. We think that's what it is. And we forget who we are. We forget that these are just the duties. These are just the roles which we are playing. But roles become bigger than who we are because we forget who we are. So this is what he's trying to tell us in essence with this very simple looking verse. It's very simple looking, but it's not simple at all. He says he reflected. Because it can be expressed only with these words. So that's why I mentioned the causation. If we have taken birth, there must be some cause of it. So that's why he means Purusha reflected. Whichever way it reflected. What is it by whose departure I shall depart? Depart from where? Atma is part of the Paramatma. Need to depart. And by whose stay I shall stay. It's a very deep verse. And if you have been meditating on Om, this will be more clear to you. Or the other verses also. I would suggest go back to the other verses, other chapters in the beginning. Because this whole chapter is about the Atma and only the Atma. And we have to understand it intuitively. These words might help you a little bit. But only words, no matter how somebody speaks, whether in English or Sanskrit, they are still finite. Finite has the limitation to understand the infinite. Infinite can be only experienced. Remember that. So next week we will start with verse number 4, and maybe we'll finish it, the whole chapter. I think we should be able to finish it. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for coming.